Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take a huge pile of sources, articles, quotes, fan forums, you name it, and boil it all down into what you actually need to know.
And today, wow, we are jumping headfirst into a crisis that is just, it's spectacular, really. It has completely engulfed Liverpool Football Club.
Right. And this isn't just about a few bad results, though they have been, let's be honest, catastrophic lately.
Not at all. This is a public civil war. You've got the manager, you've got the club legend, and it feels like the whole dressing room culture is just tearing itself apart right in front of our eyes.
Absolutely. The sources we've pulled together are, well, they're exhaustive. We've got a mountain of fan and media reaction, direct quotes that are being attributed to the main players here, and some really forensic analysis of one single event.
That event being the alleged comments from Liverpool icon Mohamed Salah right after he was dropped from the starting 11.
Exactly. And the fallout from that is, it's astonishing. The core of it, really, is the relationship between Salah and the new manager, Arne Slot.
I mean, Salah has reportedly come out and said the relationship is broken, full stop. He feels thrown under the bus, and he's basically said the door is open for him to leave now.
And this all lands at a time when Slot's job was already looking, a bit shaky.
A bit shaky's putting it mildly. The data is just dire. 8 points from the last 30 available in the league. I mean, that's relegation form for a team that's supposed to be challenging for the title.
And into that mess, Salah has just dropped this geopolitical level bombshell.
So our mission today, as always, is to unpack it all. We're going to look at Salah's claims, his defense, then dive into Slot's man management, which is coming under serious fire.
We'll also get into the whole lost the dressing room debate and finally the massive financial and cultural implications of this whole drama. It is a very, very messy situation.
Okay, let's get into it then. The source of the fire. Those quotes.
Those incendiary quotes from Mo Salah.
Right, so the initial reports just spread like wildfire everywhere. And you can see why. His words were just so precise, so designed to cause maximum damage.
Let's start with the first one, the relationship.
He allegedly just came out and said it. His working relationship with Arne Slot is, quote, broken.
And when a player of his stature, an icon, uses a word like broken, that's not just a disagreement over tactics, is it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That suggests a complete and utter breakdown of communication, of trust, right at the very top of the club. It's a massive red flag.
Waving furiously. But he didn't stop there.
Oh, no. He moved right on to feeling thrown under the bus. He's saying that Liverpool, and you assume he means the management, someone high up, have actively undermined him.
And the killer line, the one that's everywhere, is that he believes someone does not want me in the club.
I mean, wow. That just changes everything, doesn't it? It goes from being a professional dispute about form to what sounds like a political purge.
To think you're being deliberately pushed out, especially when you're on, a reported 400 grand a week, and you have this sacred status with the fans, it suggests a level of toxicity we just haven't seen at that club for a decade.
And then the final shot, which was just so calculated, he leaves the door wide open for a January exit.
Which brings us to the Saudi Arabia question, which is looming over all of this. That's the context that makes the thrown under the bus claim so interesting.
Exactly. I mean, if the club is actually thinking, okay, we need to cash in before his contract runs down, then maybe Salah's feeling isn't paranoia.
You're saying the cold shoulder, the benching, it could all be a strategy, a way to sort of nudge him towards the exit, save on wages, and get a massive fee.
It's possible. It adds this whole other layer of complexity. But let's dig into his justification, this legacy argument he's making. Is he just being arrogant here, or does he have a point?
Why does he feel he could just go public like this?
Well, he leans straight on his record, doesn't he? His whole argument is basically, I'm a club legend. I shouldn't have to fight for my position every single day. I've earned it.
It's an almost regal thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of assertion of his status.
It is, but here's the thing. His ego is backed up by some truly mind-boggling stats, which he was very quick to point out.
And they are overwhelming.
I mean, since he joined Liverpool in 2017, he has the most goals and assists in the entire Premier League. Not just at Liverpool, the whole league.
Just to put that in perspective for you listening, think about all the elite forwards at every top club over that period. City, Chelsea, Spurs. And Salah has outproduced every single one of them. It's staggering.
And he's got the record for the most goal contributions for a single club in Premier League history, 276. Plus, he's broken the 250 goal mark for Liverpool. These aren't just good numbers, they're historic.
So his point is that history should buy him a bit of credit to the bank when his form dips,
Yeah.
right? Especially if other players are also struggling.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to the Harry Kane comparison he made, which is fascinating.
Right, the Kane analogy. Tell us about that.
He basically uses Kane as a benchmark for what he sees as hypocrisy from the media and fans. He said that when Kane, an English captain, a national hero, had a slump, and he specified a 10-game sum,
Everyone defended him.
everyone. The narrative was all about patience. He'll come good, it's just a matter of time.
Whereas with him, he's arguing the moment his form drops, the knives are out. It's immediately bench him, sell him, he's finished.
He even paused and said something like, "I am sorry, Harry," which was this sort of bitter, slightly funny aside. It just perfectly summed up his feeling that he's held to this impossibly high, maybe unfair standard.
Hold on a second. Is that analogy actually fair? Because the counter-argument from the sources is pretty strong on this.
It is. I mean, the argument is when Kane wasn't scoring, he was still dropping deep, creating chances. His all-round game was still there.
Whereas with Salah, the criticism is that it's a fundamental drop-off in everything. It's not just that he's missing chances.
That's the core of the fan pushback. While they all respect the legacy, a lot of them are calling this pathetic behavior and a shamelessly self-serving tantrum.
Because it's not a 10-game dip.
No. The consensus among the critics is that this decline has been going on for a lot longer. They're saying his form has been shocking all season, and you could even see it starting towards the end of last season.
So for them, the benching wasn't a shock. It was, in the words of one source, inevitable.
Exactly. They're saying, look, professionalism is about what you're doing now, not last year, especially when you're the highest paid player. If the team is failing, you have to be held accountable.
So you have this incredible clash, a legend's historical credit versus the harsh reality of current performance.
And in football, reality usually wins when the results are this bad.
Okay, so let's shift focus from Salah's explosion to the man who lit the fuse, Arne Slot. Was this decision to bench him a sensible response to a slump? Or was it the final straw for a player who already felt pushed aside?
Well, let's look at the context of the benching, because to be fair to Slot, he did give Salah a lot of rope.
Right, he wasn't just dropped out of the blue.
Not at all. Salah played the full 90 minutes in 11 of the first 15 league games this season. Slot kept playing him, kept giving him the chance to play his way back into form, even when the goals had dried up for the whole team.
So this was a gradual thing. He finally drops him for 3 straight games, though Salah came on at halftime in one of them. It seems like a pretty standard managerial move, really.
It would be, but because of Salah's reaction, it's now put Slot's entire management style under this incredibly harsh microscope, especially his people skills, and especially when you compare him to his predecessors.
Yes. The ghost of the feast. The comparison is unavoidable, isn't it? The sources are talking about a Klopp hug vacuum.
It's a great phrase for it. The players Slot inherited were used to years of this incredibly intense, supportive, charismatic management, a manager who'd put an arm around you when you needed it.
And Slot's style is not that.
Not even close. The sources describe it as being very much in the Benitez style of man management, in that he doesn't.
Wow. Invoking Rafa Benitez. That's a very specific and powerful comparison. Known for being a tactical genius, but, emotionally very cold, very distant.
And that's exactly the picture being painted of Slot. Detached. Prioritizing his system over the morale of the individuals.
The sources are suggesting this is just dissolving that famous team culture, that everyone is just showing up for a paycheck instead of doing their best for their leader.
If that emotional bond is gone, performance is always the next thing to go.
And this perception of a low EQ is being made worse by what fans see as favoritism in his team selections.
Oh, absolutely. The fan criticism here is really intense. Certain players seem to be completely undroppable no matter how they play.
Who are we talking about?
The 2 names that come up again and again are Cody Gakpo and Ibrahima Konate. The sources are pretty brutal, saying they're performing like hot garbage or are just plain shite.
Konate in particular seems to be a real lightning rod.
He is. His name is all over the forums, people pointing to consistently poor performances, defensive mistakes, those sloppy tackles in the box that give away chances.
So the question from the fans is simple. Why is Salah, the guy with hundreds of goals to his name, being singled out and dropped for 3 games, while these other guys, who are actively costing the team points, get to start every week?
And that selective punishment feeds right into Salah's narrative of being the scapegoat. But the criticism of Slot's people skills goes way beyond just Salah. He's being accused of having terrible communication and of having alienated too many players.
Okay, so let's go through this list of supposedly marginalized players, because it's a long one, isn't it?
It really is. The first name that comes up a lot is Federico Chiesa. Some sources say he has the most right to feel wronged.
And he's reportedly been the model professional through all of it, which makes it even stranger.
Exactly. Then you've got the younger lads like Jarrell Quansah and Harvey Elliott. Quansah especially was seen as this huge prospect, but he's just vanished from the squad. It feeds this idea that Slot doesn't trust the talent that was brought through by the previous regime.
And what about the senior players?
Well, Wataru Endo is another one. Came in, looked reliable, and now his minutes are all over the place. And then you've got big figures like Joe Gomez and, crucially, Andy Robertson, who also seem to have lost their place in the hierarchy.
So when you look at that list, established stars, defensive rocks, promising youngsters, it really does paint a picture of a manager who just can't connect with the squad he inherited.
And this isn't just about morale. It links directly to the tactical problems, especially with Salah. There's a really strong theory in the sources that his drop in form isn't just his legs going, it's a direct result of Slot's tactics.
Right, the stupid system, as the fans are calling it. The idea that Slot is forcing a system on players who aren't suited to it. How does that affect Salah specifically?
Well, under Klopp, Salah was an inverted forward. He'd cut in from the right, get into those half spaces, and he had an attacking fullback, usually Trent Alexander-Arnold, overlapping and creating space for him.
A system that was built around his strengths.
Precisely. But the sources suggest Slot's system is different. It asks Salah to stay much wider, more like a traditional winger. He's stuck out on the touchline, expected to beat two defenders on his own, and critically, without that overlapping fullback for support.
So you're taking a 33-year-old who has perfected a role based on clever movement and lethal finishing and telling him to become a pacey 1v1 winger again.
Exactly. His output is bound to drop. His body language, which people have commented on, looks frustrated. He's being asked to do all the hard work against packed defenses without any of the support that made him so deadly.
So from his point of view, he's being punished for the failure of a system he didn't even want, while the manager keeps picking other players, like Konate, who are arguably just as responsible for the team's problems.
The man management and the tactics, you just can't separate them.
So this all leads to the most damning conclusion of all for a manager. The widespread belief, certainly among the fans, that Salah going public confirms it. Arne Slot has lost the dressing room.
That diagnosis is pretty much universal across the fan sources we've seen. People are calling him a dead man walking. The feeling is his position is now untenable.
The argument being that a player like Salah would never have gone nuclear like this unless the situation was already completely toxic behind the scenes.
Right, and there's this narrative building that maybe he's not just doing it for himself, that he's acting as a voice for these players, you know, the Chiesas, the Quansahs, the Robertsons, who are all just as unhappy but can't speak out.
The idea that Salah, with his status and the financial safety net of a Saudi move, is the only one who can afford to throw this necessary grenade.
He's the one taking the risk, saying what everyone else is thinking. It's the ultimate power play.
That narrative crashes right into the behavior of some of the other senior players, doesn't it? Which provides a really strong counterpoint.
It really does. Look at Dominic Szoboszlai. When he was asked about all the drama, his response was just the textbook professional answer. What happened in the dressing room stays in the dressing room.
Total loyalty, total maturity.
And then there's Andy Robertson. The sources are full of praise for him. Even though he's reportedly been marginalized himself, he's being held up as the perfect example of positive leadership. Some are even saying he should be made captain.
So you've got this clear split in the dressing room. The superstar causing a storm versus the disciplined pros just trying to hold things together.
And that brings up a really scary comparison that's being made everywhere, the Cristiano Ronaldo, Eric Ten Hag situation at Manchester United.
Ah, yes, the specter of the Old Trafford circus.
Exactly. Fans are terrified. This is the start of that. A circus of leaks, public complaints, and a manager who has no authority left.
It's a horrifying precedent, isn't it? If Salah's public tantrum gets Slot the sack, it sends a message to every player that if you don't like being benched, you can just complain to the media and get the manager fired.
The irony is just staggering. Liverpool, for a decade, were the absolute model of stability and unity, and now they're staring down the barrel of the exact kind of player power chaos that defined United's worst years.
It's genuinely unbelievable. But okay, let's look at the objective question here. Politics aside, did benching Salah actually work? Did the team play better?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting because the data is so conflicted.
Let's start with the argument for the benching. What do the sources say?
The analysis suggests the team looked better in attack and transitions and far more fluent without him. Some describe Salah as being a bit of a passenger recently, predictable in attack, and not offering much defensively.
So taking him out freed up other players.
It seems so. Specifically, it allowed Wirtz to become the main creator. Multiple sources say Wirtz has played his best games for the club in the 3 matches since Salah was dropped.
And the numbers back that up, don't they?
They do, and it's a stark difference. In the 3 games since Salah was dropped, the team scored 6 goals. In the 3 games just before that, with him starting, they scored just 1.
1 goal in 3 games to 6 goals in 3. That's a massive jump.
It is, and some sources also point out that the team's resilience has improved. They're salvaging draws instead of capitulating. So there's a strong argument to be made that Slot's decision was tactically correct.
That Salah was, as some said, absolutely horrific for months and deserved to be dropped, and the team is actually better off for it.
But then you have the argument against the benching, which is basically, fine, the attack is a bit better, but the team is still dropping points and the defense is still a mess.
The right side is still shipping big chances, pointing the finger right back at players like Konate.
So Salah's defenders are saying he's just a scapegoat. Slot hasn't fixed the real problems. He's just created a toxic war in the dressing room while the team continues to leak points.
It's a situation where everyone can claim to be a little bit right. The attack does look better. Salah was in bad form, but the culture is in tatters, and they're still not winning games.
The question is a slight uptick in performance worth the total institutional chaos this has caused?
Right now, you'd have to say probably not.
Which brings us to the final, brutal power struggle. This now lands squarely on the desks of the new leadership. Richard Hughes, the sporting director, and Michael Edwards, the CEO of football.
And they have an absolutely impossible choice to make. Do you back your struggling new manager, or do you back the club's biggest legend?
It's a complete test of their philosophy. You always hear that phrase, nobody is bigger than the club.
But that's easy to say. It's harder to enforce when the player has Salah's history and the manager have, as the sources put it, barely had credentials coming in.
That's the problem. Salah has this immense reserve of goodwill in the bank. Slot was Hughes and Edwards' first big appointment. Sacking him now would be a massive admission that they got their very first and most important decision completely wrong.
It's their credibility on the line. But the sources suggest a lot of fans, if you force them to choose, would probably side with Salah out of loyalty.
They might, but Edwards and Hughes have to think about the business. And the business side of this is colossal.
We're talking about the contractor.
Exactly. Salah is 33, heading towards 34. He's in the final year of that enormous £400,000 a week deal. And his form, well, the brutal analysis is that his legs have gone.
So financially, the clock is ticking.
It's ticking very loudly. If an offer comes in from Saudi Arabia, a 3-figure fee, so over $100 million, which is seen as possible, a January sale starts to look not just smart, but necessary.
You can't let an asset that valuable walk away for free next summer, especially if his best years are behind him.
It's cold, but it's business. You take that money, you reinvest it in 2 or 3 younger elite players, and you rebuild.
But as we said, the risk isn't just financial. It's the cultural precedent you set.
That's the biggest danger. If you sack Slot because Salah threw a tantrum, you are sending a clear message. Player power runs this club.
And that's the road to that downward spiral we talked about. It completely undermines the authority of any future manager.
But on the other hand, if you side with Slot and try to force Salah out, you risk a really ugly, acrimonious departure. A club legend being frozen out, it would be a terrible end to an incredible story.
So what happens next? There's a temporary ceasefire coming, isn't there?
Yes. Salah is due to leave for the Africa Cup of Nations very soon, and that gives the club a bit of breathing room, a chance to reset the atmosphere without his presence dominating everything.
But the timing of his comments was just so calculated. He drops this bomb right before he leaves.
Utterly calculated. He leaves this ticking time bomb for everyone else to deal with, knowing he won't be there to face the immediate music. It was designed for maximum pressure.
And what's the consensus on Slot's future?
It's still just devastatingly bleak for him. The feeling is he's a dead man walking. It doesn't matter if he gets a couple of wins while Salah's away.
The combination of the terrible results, the loss of the dressing room, the alienation of so many players, it's just too much to come back from.
It feels inevitable he won't last past Christmas, or certainly past Salah's return from AFCON.
Which leads to the biggest, most worrying takeaway from all of this, the long-term cultural damage.
We're talking about the complete breaking down of that stable, unified culture, the famous Liverpool way that was built over the last decade.
That culture, where you had squad players who would come in, do a job, no complaints, team first.
That's what people fear is gone. That this whole episode reveals a deep cultural rot, a spiral into toxicity that could make it impossible for any new manager to come in and rebuild successfully.
It's more than just losing games. It feels like the club is at risk of losing its very identity.
So this deep dive has really laid it all bare. It's an extraordinary situation. You've got a new manager, Arne Slot, who seems crippled by bad results and even worse man management.
And he's collided, head-on, with a club legend in Mohamed Salah, who seems unwilling to accept his own decline or being benched, and has decided to fight it out in the most public, most damaging way imaginable.
We've seen the hard stats that justify Salah's benching, the team scoring 5 times as many goals without him, but we've also seen the powerful argument that Slot's cold, detached style has just shattered the club's stability.
And now, the new hierarchy, Edwards and Hughes, are left with this existential choice. Do you enforce discipline and risk losing your biggest star on bad terms? Or do you give in to player power and live with the toxic consequences?
The fallout is already huge, and it threatens to completely derail their season and maybe even change the DNA of Liverpool Football Club for years to come.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. When a club legend publicly takes on a struggling new manager like this, forcing the issue, is that purely an act of selfish, calculated petulance all about his own ego and maybe engineering a move, or could it actually be a necessary, maybe even a beneficial grenade thrown for the greater good of the club to speed up the removal of a manager who is already destroying the team from the inside?